Hello everyone, this is Chaco. I have today with me Olivier Ciais. He is based in Nice in southeast of France, and he is actually pioneering the opening of a temple in southern France known as Sainte Claude. And as part of all this, between the 20th and 30th of June, Olivier is organizing a gathering of souls and bodies called Earth in Transition. Olivier is a spiritual explorer. He has explored a very early exoteric and esoteric Christianity, Sufism, Vedic tradition. But it is actually through Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism, Aurobindo's integral yoga, and the yoga of synthesis as pervading the works of Helen Blavatsky, Nicholas and Helena Roerich, Alice Bailey, and for the last decade, Bruce Lyon, that he felt home. So I'm happy to have Olivier today with us to share his vision insights into landing temples, like manifesting temples to welcome, to birth and seed new civilization on our planet. So welcome, Olivier.
Thank you. Thank you, Chaco, for having me.
So yes, it's a pleasure. So I was actually looking forward to this interview for some time, and yeah, today is the moment which actually we are both free to do this. So can you tell us a bit more about your project called Sainte Claude in near to Nice?
Yeah, I think that first of all, I feel it's really not something I consider my project because I feel it's not something my personal or even soul will have started in any way. It feels like it's really more that it feels somehow like it's been the land who who has like showed up in a very specular moment of this existence in a pretty beautiful way. I was with some friends in this valley where we had been with some friends for various pilgrimage or visits. And then just speaking about dragons in the earth or in the beautiful mountain just in front of us or in the sky with the Draco constellation. The guy just looked at me and say, "You have to come back another time, and I will show you something." And since then, it has been like I've been more trying to assist the emergence of this land rather to start a project to create a temple here. I'm more willing to understand and uh, and align my action to the land's will than the other way around. So I feel there is a will of simplicity there for sure. Like the temple is already given, it's a cave that's pretty long. And that brings us from a large soul area, let's say. Then we go and dive into a more narrow area covered with little quartz and little crystals, and it feels more like this kind of jewel where only the essential part of us can access the a bit larger womb of dark, of really pitch dark, with a really beautiful presence on which I won't put any words. But it feels an extremely refined temple that is offered by nature itself. So the work is more has been first of all like to gather what it took to have the legal transition, and this came also really magically through also the receptivity of beings like Andreas Dreki, who brought 45 obsidian stones from a really sacred site in Iceland. And also to the generosity of many beings who have been like, okay, I will step for one of these stones or some of these stones to be a pillar of the emergence of this temple. And some gatherings since then, last one was a few days ago, where beings just stop by and feel into the presence that is there. Around that cave, I feel like we can have the usuals, but we will try really I feel to respect this idea of really essential simplicity, beauty, naturalness, integral ecology that the land is calling. And the land is also part of, it's funny because I feel it's reviving. Like the future is also the past. We are reviving, I think, a previous incarnation of a really beautiful and aligned community that lived all around the valley where the temple is. And so it feels really beautiful to, yeah, to be in this space in between times and having this emergence of this temple.
And in this emergence of these temples that you talked about, the past, remnants of temples that existed before, and today something is coming out. So, what is the speciality of this location, this specific location?
I wonder actually if it's the specialty of this location or if it just maybe the specialty of this round of temple, this dispensation. Um, what I grab is this idea like in this former community, we had a few keynotes that came up through various ways of exploring. And one was the name of this community was Kiss from God. I understand this as the presence of God in its fingertip. So as what we could call in the Trans-Himalayan jargon as synthesis. So synthesis being somehow the identification to larger and larger and larger sphere of existence. Just like if the atom on my nail would be conscious to be Olivier, even maybe conscious to be Olivier performing some kind of action in his own plane of existence, which um, is a beautiful idea of fractals or Russian dolls, etc. And it's really peculiar and difficult to put words on it. But I feel this is exactly what is invited in this place, but more largely. So
Mm.
it feels like this dispensation is a lot around this, what could be called the law of synthesis, which is beyond this idea of intelligent repartition of resources of our law of economy, which is also a sort of harvest of what we have eventually learned around the idea of love and the law of attraction, and answering to this idea of love synthesis, which to me is really linked to the will. I feel it's synthesis if there is a kind of integration of identification. It feels a really hard language, I speak. But
Mm.
I feel like if we somehow align and dissolve the lesser level of identification to be the presence of the greater sphere in the lesser, then the will of the greater sphere can begin to pour into the world through each fractal. So synthesis to me is linked to the downpouring of the energies of will and also to the upwelling of the energies of remembrance. I will call this remembrance. It feels like metaphysical, mythological approach, but it feels like to me, I've ever felt into this role of the black hole of Krishna, like the universal Prajnapati who unleashed evolution a long time ago. The primordial black holes dissolving this dark age of the universe and beginning to create galaxies and to create stars and to transform places in the galaxy that were completely inert and almost apparently dead, and to electrify them so that evolution begins and gravitational collapse happens and stellar systems with planets around them birth. And then I just feel like that's my way of perceiving it or telling myself a story is that a sparkle of that essential ray of plasma that came from an active black hole to launch evolution here can be still alive and somehow kept in specific veins of crystal or metals in the crust of the earth. That would be what we could call a dragon. So when the consciousness or the awareness of the greater sphere can descend and meet the remembrance of that sparkle of life long forgotten, but there all the time, and when the two have the ability to meet at the core of a human group or a human heart, I feel this is the coming dispensation, the art to be alive as this. And I don't know which shape it will take, but I just feel like my whole being is willing to live this, and the whole land I feel is willing to welcome beings willing to live this and have a little ride together.
So, what would be the role of humans in this? Is it a connector role, or is it just standing by and doing nothing? Do we have to do some action, or we just have to just let it happen?
I I'm far from having the keys, but all I feel is like it is by the most naked simplicity and authenticity that something can surge. But at the same time, that this naked simplicity is the fruit of such a long process and journey of evolution that it is both somehow. Um, I just feel into the peculiar position of humanity, just to begin with, as a kingdom on this
Mhm.
planet. It is the fourth kingdom. So it may have, like our heart chakra, has three chakras above, three chakras below.
Okay.
Humanity somehow has the world soul and the planetary life above, and has three kingdoms below it. It is, to me, a living bridge. Humanity has this peculiar, even in Trans-Himalayan jargon, this fourth ray monadic, which makes it an ideal connector of those two energies. So it's at the core of its own naked simplicity and essential note that somehow we can play this role.
Mhm.
And it feels a peculiar role also dealing with this idea of being a referee between those two energies. I don't feel there is a recipe to at once such gigantic energies as the descending lightning or the upwelling dragon. We are so tiny and insignificant compared to those energies. But as soon I feel as we remember ourselves as being this kind of cosmic serpent, serpenting everywhere, and those two energies as being modalities or polarities of the same one cosmic serpent or universal serpent, then we allow ourselves as an individual, as a group, to be traversed by them and to be a merging point for those two. And this, I feel, requires a huge, huge effort of at oneing, which can be extremely dissolving. Like in my experience over the last years, it feels so difficult to be responsive to the will of freedom of the monad while remaining anchored and respectful of the matter or the personal or the consecrated personality. It feels extremely difficult when somehow abiding in decent anchoring and living with the soul and the personality realm to really be responsive to the the naked spontaneity of the spirit. And nonetheless we have a history on this planet of somehow fighting between those two energies. We have the mythology of Michael slaying the dragon. We have the dragons swallowing everyone, and there is no more evolution or purpose because we are just indulging this life in matter and in this planet, and eventually an incarnation before it, in this civilization, eventually in the previous one. So are there moments where we can add as one humanity somehow be a means for those two energy to add one on this planet? I feel this is a really specific mission, but I I feel it's such a beautiful one, and it could be a core invitation for this round of temple and teachings.
Okay. So for those who are not very familiar with this vocabularies that Olivier is using, is basically coming from Trans-Himalayan teachings, which is, as I said earlier, shared by Alice Bailey. And very recently, at least, I am impacted by the teachings and transmissions by Bruce Lyon. So, can you just explain very, very fast, Olivia, so that for the listeners it will be easy to understand what exactly when you say about the personality, soul, and monadic perspective, very, very fast, so that in the next things that we go deeper, it will be easier for people to understand you.
Yeah, I could just go when we end the call, I could just leave my house and go and take my car and head someplace.
Hmm.
I feel at one moment, every process of creation in the universe is the union of a complete abstract and a complete concrete, or spirit and matter, or whatever. So that very thing, be it a thing that makes me move and head towards my car, as is completely formless, it's a pure intent, it's completely abstract, yet it makes me move. And when I arrive, I arrive in my car and I became the animating principle of the car and of this vehicle that will lead me someplace in Nice to perform any kind of thing that I want to do. So this is how I perceive the monad, or this kind of dot that is absolutely in total oneness with the one life inhabiting the universe. This is the silent witness of the Puranas or whatever. It is exactly
Mm.
this that it's really hard to speak about. That is at the core of an animating principle that is about somehow more or less to relate those two gigantic forces of the universe, spirit and matter, which is consciousness, which is the soul principle, which is the child principle of of these two parents, and the soul that is itself somehow indwelling in this etherical or astral, mental, etc. Like all this shit that makes up finally this body.
Mm.
So this is how we would perceive it, and it's. I feel there is no separation. I feel there is exactly one place when the larger egg of this kind of divine presence that we are, the father in the sky of of the theology, is also purely one with the soul, and is also absolutely one with the personality, and this place where the three bodies are somehow integrated in synergy and answering as one uh, to a larger stimulus. I feel this is also something that could be called synthesis, and that eventually this round of this coming spiritual culture is inviting us to explore.
Okay, thank you. So when you talk about the earlier civilization or the current civilization, how will you define it? Is there in a time scale or time period that this civilization that is, as you said earlier, is slowly, um, you know, finishing, or it's like the sun is setting for the civilization and the next one is emerging. So is there a timeline that has been talked about in these teachings?
There are, and to be honest, I won't be able to remember the precise
Okay.
dates of them. Um, on my side, I would just feel like we have a sort of um, event horizon for this civilization that ranges 6 to 13 um, thousands of years ago.
Okay.
Um, Before that, there is a huge blank. I think there is a moment where of in between major civilization, because we can speak, for example, of the Roman Empire as a civilization, but this is a minor cycle in a larger cycle of civilization. So if we go into this, like the whole sets of civilization happening earthwide since Göbekli Tepe and the most ancient sites could represent this idea of okay, this present civilization. Before that, there could well have been a long period of relative pralaya, or dissolving of the idea of civilization on Earth, and before that, there could have been this previous civilization that since Plato, we have been called the Atlantean, and that has somehow, I feel there is also a sort of legacy. It's like
Mm.
of course, a spiral of evolution where each civilization would have um, undertook a specific length and depth of work so that the next one can take on and continue to express as an evolving planet, because this is what we are. We are a planet evolving, and we are cells in it, in my opinion. And I feel like each civilization represents somehow an expression of the evolution of this planet. And for example, ours, I feel, is really related. It would be for the Transcendent teachings, the fifth major cycle. And the five is associated with the consciousness. Uh, it is associated in terms of also of rheology with the ray of concrete understanding and concrete knowledge and the ability to analyze. And to analyze, you dissociate, you separate.
Mm.
I feel we indeed have been in a journey of separation. How can we feel so alone, but also somehow self-reliant to finally arrive on our knees to understand that yes, everything is interdependent, but we have been like provoking the very means for our separation, the mind, to arrive at the end of its exploration and like arriving at this point where it's just a concrete experience that everything is related, and it comes from the mind itself. When we birth quantum physics that to- tell us about entanglements, where we understand ecosystemy, this last century has been just a kind of, I think, kneeling down of the monastic principle, the mind principle towards something greater, and to say it was right, but I needed to experience the separation for myself to really return to you out of my full free will and understanding. And when this happened, I feel something really different from a previous civilization can happen. It is completely freely chosen cooperation with the evolutionary plans, which is completely different of what we are told could have been the Atlantean civilization, where there could have been a bigger gap between the high initiates or priests or sages or magicians or whatever, and
Mhm.
a more um, let's say ordinary ways to be as humans on Earth. So then, if such thing happen, either you rely on your sense of purity and a bit obedience, either you rebel.
Mm.
And we have many tales around the end of the Atlantean civilization. I don't think also it is fully the how I understand the will of evolution is to have such gaps. To me, evolution is like what Ken Wilber was calling the great chain of being, and it is from each kingdom to each kingdom, from each plane to another plane, from each layer to another layer. It is a chaining that is really somehow as integrated as possible so that the bridge's strands are really sturdy and cannot be wiped out. I feel the last civilization may have ended in the wiping out of a bridge between humanity and the world soul. And we have been living and paying and somehow living the hard price of being
Mm.
separated from magic and the world soul and our full intuition and our full openness to the beautiful harmonious sphere of this cosmos. And so eventually, if out of our own free will and surrender, we rebuild that bridge towards the world soul, then the world soul is willing to, then the two shores are linked, and then it's a completely different planetary system. It is like if we are under trauma and our personality is there and our soul is there and there is no real interaction and we are almost frozen, or if we are just fluid and living the beauty and the aliveness of our soul, inhabiting our personality. Like, so if the planetary life is inhabiting the core of the world soul or anima mundi, which is somehow expressing beautifully, creatively, lovefully, purposefully through humanity, what kind of civilization can birth? It's immense.
Okay, so as part of this birthing of civilization, so what is the role of temples that we talked in the beginning of this conversation. So let's come back to this.
Yes, I feel there is a way to look at temples from a completely non-human centric perspective.
Hmm.
I would look at temples just as I would like, for example, a human cell that is able to read the DNA through its ribosome, and has also like various energetic or etheric inpouring of energy that sustained its growth and that are also carry outpouring messages from the cell to the rest of the body. And this is by definition the living universal ecosystem. Every single cell, every single atom in this gigantic universe is related. So when those tremendous energies converge to the earth, they need impouring, outpouring places. I consider myself temple as a place where there is this kind of in and out energy between the core of the earth and other places in earth, the solar system, the galaxy. So it's a place where when a human being, when a human soul is willing to open to this, it's a place for downloads, it's a place for impression, it's a place to let our sense of individuality dissolve into the vastness and the beauty of this universe. It's really poetic, and it's why maybe the rishis have been creating such a beautiful poetry a long time ago. I feel also, if we remind this conversation a bit earlier, this idea of synthesis, it is a place where we can go with a limited range. We can go with our studies and our mind and our personal life, and already somehow being aligned with our personal life and going into one aligned direction is also a huge achievement in terms of evolution on this planet. It comes after 4 billions of years. We can also go farther, and we have had temples like if we remember Mexico or Quetzalcoatl, where we were able somehow to merge the eagle or the atmic plane or the wheel of the soul, being able to meet the telluric energies of the snake and to birth civilization like this. Or we can maybe enter a moment where I would portray that as the swan and the dragon. We could have really the most electric realm of the monadic planes and even higher, with the most dormant layer of the matter of the telluric globe that is the Earth, that has in itself maybe the most inertia to revolution. And if somehow what is the most evolutionary and the most resistant to evolution are bridged together by the will of a human group, then what happens? There is a connection between a huge plus and a huge minus, wherever we want to put the plus and the minus. That is the cause for tension. And I picture myself evolution as tension. So temples would be places where we allow tension to be so that evolution can happen.
Mm. Okay. So how would you see the role of France, and especially in the south east of France, near to the Mediterranean coast? What would be the role of that specific geography in
Mm.
this?
I feel there is such a beauty in the leaves of trees. I feel Athena here, this gift she gave to the birthing humanity, and Athens with
Mm.
giving the olive tree, saying like this tree will give shelter, wood, fire, food, etc., beauty, etc. So I feel this place is really in this idea of applied spirituality. How can a heavenly gift be really of service to every kingdom, every sentient being, every layer within humanity, every age, every degree of evolution? So I feel there is really this kind of arborescent, Jonathan would call this octopus, but I feel there is a weaving of energy that is really willing to manifest interdependence at every level, within the touch of two bodies or a caress, whether in the entangling emotion, whether in the shared ideas. And we know that this France is really strong around shared ideas, and also in terms of really higher level of entanglement, the soul,
Mm.
even this oneness at the core of ourselves. So I feel this is a place to really live in integral ecology, I feel. But it's also a place to live this idea of synthesis, because I feel there is this will to manifest something that is respectful of the love principle of the soul and of the will of life. So this requires somehow a nice level of expression. Can
Mm.
we express? Can How can we somehow let ourselves be traversed by life so that the three-dimensional words express the subjective and even abstract planes, but into manifestation? I feel it's deeply related to the role of the earth itself, which is willing somehow to manifest as an Eden in a huge level, in a really high degree of density. So this, I don't think this planet is that much about flying out into Brahmajyoti or forgetting about incarnation. It can be a way, but it can be also a way rather to stay and help the evolutionary currents come down. So that to me is really close to the view of Aurobindo that was willing we can just open and let Shakti come down and transform. It relates also so to the alchemist. So of course there is this idea of alchemy in southern France or in the whole France, with this idea of these places feel open and supporting the great work of transformation by offering those lands to really let descend all those currents. And we have also had this so graceful presence of Magdalene, eventually maybe for 30 years in this cave in La Sainte-Baume, in this and other places in the south of France, more near Toulouse, etc. So I don't want to trace any kind of historical presence of her. It's way more too complex. But I just feel there is a level of grace in the divine feminine embodiment that is really present here. So we have everything to really thrill the joy that there is to be alive on such a beautiful planet in contact with the goddess. And I feel this is a strong transmission here. It is so beautiful. Each stream, each forest, each cave is so vibrating with the beauty of the goddess and the poetic aliveness at hand here. So I feel this is a huge part of the transmission, and
Mhm.
I would add, like I said, also this idea of the throat chakra, the third chakra, the expression, the vibration. So it's about also it is said that the word of power of the third ray for the Trans-Himalayan teaching would be purpose itself, MI. So there is an idea of merging with purpose, okay, and expressing that purpose, but not as much as possible. I feel uh, when I feel of Dante, when I feel of the Italians, because we are really close to Italy, so Italy and France
Mm.
are really one and one, one thing. There is this idea of art of being, art of expression. So I feel it's about basically mythology, teaching, journaling, creative expression, beautiful architecture. It's able really about templing the earth, expressing the beauty of the inner in the outer.
Okay, thank you, Olivier, for this. So I have one last question, which is very much related to what you just expressed about templing the earth, especially in southern part of France. This project of Earth in Transition, which is being organized from the 20th of June 2024 until 30th of June. So how do you see this particular event as a kind of portal for whatever you just expressed with regard to templing?
I hope this is the activity of the existence of a temple here willing to be somehow lived by human presence. I feel there is a lot of expression, and it will be a beautiful occasion to really start back from the dark and really try to let early symbols, early new letters, new keynotes, and that turn into new mythology, turn into an emerging culture, and then eventually densify as a civilization. So I think it's really a moment to accept that we don't know, but that we are willing to dream with the earth about what's coming ahead and how somehow can humanity be a partner in co-creation with the earth and the world soul. And so I feel that's really a strong intent behind Northern Transition. Another is really to be really close to the earth, really close to the land, really in this idea of simplicity as like a human group, often in a cave or in rivers, etc. I feel there is a lot of simplicity and also of like remembrance of those moments of evolution, this degree of initiation for humanity when humanity become Homo sapiens. And there's beautiful. I have in mind this idea, these images from Kubrick 2001. You know, when there's this black presence of the monolith, and suddenly there is the first tool and the Homo sapiens births. And I just hope that we are approaching such a stage for humanity, and being close to the earth feel and in those conditions feels also a beautiful remembrance for this. And yeah, I feel also there is this idea of one humanity and togetherness. Like we will have at the same time elders from various indigenous cultures and traditions, or some more Western art of transitioning civilization or reinventing culture, or some really fine artists. And the place where, for example, like say the most like the inspired part of our Western civilization, the essential gifts of the indigenous traditions, the sparkle of aliveness and evolution in art, the place that what they are converging, I feel is a place of deep reunion that we want to tap into, because I feel it will be a reference point for the months and years ahead. Um, it is a place for me where science, ecology, nature, philosophy, etc., are not separated. And some in between two civilizations, I feel it's also one nucleus, one seed, and it will be an exploration of that seed.
Okay, thank you, Olivier, for this. So, how can, for example, somebody who's interested in joining you for this particular event, how can we reach? Like, is it close to Nice? Is it easily accessible?
Alors, Nice is really accessible, and yeah, great, good connections for every kind of transport. Uh, Villars is really close from Nice and can be reached by train, by buses, etc. And then from then on, it's really simple. A lot of co-creation too around the meals, around accommodation, etc. So we have a Telegram channel where it all happens between participant and teams. And yeah, we will be led. My role will somehow will be over, and we will be led by really beautiful beings and waves from one to another. So from one place to another, etc. So this will happen in presence, but it will be fully shared also online. So you can also register for the Zoom webinar that will allow a lot of interaction. You will be involved into sessions of co-creation. We'll be able to ask your questions to each speaker. There will be beautiful also peer-to-peer relations, like between participants. There will be a lot of interesting stuff, whether breakout rooms or whatever. So the online part will be interesting, and we invite as much as possible that beings connect physically around this. Like it's a completely different experience if we are 20 in this place sharing around this event, or if I'm just alone at home. And also in Finland, there is Nikila Temple who is offering a residential here with no cost for accommodation, with a really reasonable, I think it's 15 euro per day, food. And they will have there also some specific moment where they're on DJs and so forth. So they will have modulation of the one program. And they will stream as the main also program for, on several occasions. And there are other places on the 20. We will also stream from Pipestone, Minnesota, which is a sacred site for the Lakota Nation and our looking horse. Bruce Lyon and I think Johnny Duncan also will be speaking from Berlin. We will have various beings speaking from various places in the world. So it happens online, it
Mm-hmm.
happens on sites, and I just feel it's a beautiful moment to gather our intent for evolution. We don't know what can happen, but I always have this image of maybe what will happen at the occasion of the solstice by Earth and transition and many other human intents can change for a few degrees the trajectory of evolution on this planet. But 1 or 2 degrees here and now, it's way more in 5, 10 years, and it's even more for the coming hundreds years. So my sense would be there is a beautiful download ahead, and we are not that much in the moment where it will be lived by individuals alone to escape the reality of the world, but rather lived as a group to transfigure civilization into an art of living. And I hope the transition is an exploration to this.
Okay. Thank you, Olivier, for this. I definitely have a lot of questions coming up um, on this, so we'll have another call after Earth in Transition to speak more into how it went and how it actually landed during the solstice in 2024. So that will be interesting to have a discussion after what was the
Yes.
experience and how it evolved, and of course other conversations. So once again, Olivier, thank you for your time, thank you for your presence, for sharing all this very interesting, inspiring, things for the next round of our human civilization, playing a very significant role, as you said.
Thank you so much for having me.